After a break, we will get former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner's take on the court's decision to delay the Roger Stone case today and what we learned about the evidence in the case. And Jason Johnson will consider what effect the new schedule for the Stone trial will have on the schedule of the presidential campaign.
I did not coordinate anything with the Trump campaign pertaining to WikiLeaks. I did follow the story perhaps more closely than anyone else.
That was Roger Stone offering the short version of his defense to the news media today, but Robert Mueller's court filing today indicates that the case is much more complex than that. Joining our discussion now, Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. Jason Johnson is back with us. Glenn, translate the Mueller memo today, the motion to delay the trial.
Sure, Lawrence. So the motion was basically an effort to get out from under the speedy trial clock, the 70-day trial deadline. And I think it's interesting that Mueller was the one who filed the motion, but the defense immediately threw up his hands and said, you know what, we don't need a speedy trial. We think this is a really complex case, so we're not even going to oppose your motion. Mm-hmm. So it looks like both parties recognize that there's still a lot of work to be done with respect to Roger Stone's criminal behavior, some of which he's been charged with, some of which I think is probably still to come.
Any guess about what the trial date would end up being in this case?
You know, my guess is that Roger Stone is going to fold like a cheap lawn chair and cooperate with the prosecutors ultimately, unless he wants to die in prison. Absent that, if he really wants to beat his chest and stay strong, you'll probably see a trial within about 6 months.
Okay. And Jason Johnson, we will have the first Democratic presidential debates before 6 months. And so what interested me, one of the things that interested me about this scheduling outcome today is this pushes the Roger Stone trial further into what will be a real presidential campaign. And boy, when you're a candidate, you don't want anybody on your side on facing a criminal trial while a campaign's going on.
You know, President Trump, Lawrence, is just going to be playing whack-a-mole every 6 or 7 weeks during his campaign. Remember, it's not just Roger Stone. It's additional information out of Cohen. It's additional things that may happen if and when we see indictments for Jared Kushner and Don Jr. All of these things are going to start playing out into the fall, and day after day after day, as we move towards perhaps having 8, possibly 10, possibly 12 different Democrats who are going to be running for the Democratic nomination in 2020, there will be nothing to distinguish between the ongoing investigations of Donald Trump and regular campaign rhetoric from these different Democrats across the world. If the president ever thought he was going to be able to escape this by distracting the public, it's not going to work. When Castro is out talking about Trump in Iowa, when Harris is out talking about Trump in South Carolina, when Booker is out talking about Trump in Texas, the message that you have a corrupt president of the United States, as we can tell every single time Roger Stone opens his mouth and does a training day, King Kong ain't got nothing on me speech, this is going to be something that will constantly be in the public consciousness and is going to hurt this president when he tries to run for re-election.
Glenn, one thing the president said in his New York Times interview tonight is that Rod Rosenstein told my lawyers that I am not a subject or a target of the Mueller investigation.
Yeah, and I don't want to be glib, but my first thought was I wonder if Rosenstein was wired up for that conversation, because then we might actually hear what was said. But look, Lawrence, we have all seen the president play this game before. When he was standing at the door of Air Force One and reporters asked him, were you aware that there was a payoff to Stormy Daniels? What did he say? No, you got to ask my lawyer, Michael Cohen. Of course, that was false. We've heard information about how at first they claimed that he never participated in drafting what turned out to be a false narrative about what happened in the Trump Tower meeting with the Russians. That was false. How many times are people going to let the president fool him? when he claims, I've done nothing wrong, I suspect we're going to learn at the end of the day that this claim is also false. He is not only a subject, he is almost certainly a target of the investigation.
Well, the other thing about that quote is the president doesn't put any time frame on it, and it could have been that Rod Rosenstein said this to him in 2017, and it wasn't operative a month later. But the other thing, of course, Jason, that the president knows is Rod Rosenstein can't confirm or deny that they ever had any kind of conversation about any of that.
Yeah, Lawrence, this is a federal investigation. It's not Law and Order, right? Like, the cops, Briscoe doesn't walk in and say, you know, you're under investigation. You better enjoy that meal now. That's not how this works. They're not going to tell the president that he is a person of interest until probably 15 minutes before Mueller drops some sort of report or some sort of indictment. So this idea, the president, I honestly think President Trump is convincing himself that everyone tells him that he is not a person of interest, because every single human being around him is. And at some point, if you surround yourself with interesting people, you too might be a person of interest.
Glenn, what was your reaction to the description that we got of the kind of evidence that Robert Mueller is dealing with in this case, in the Roger Stone case?
You know, it's pretty consequential. It sounds like terabytes. I'm not a computer guy. That sounds painful, a terabyte. Yeah. I don't know how much information that actually is, but I know I've been told it's a lot. But if I could jump back to just the way people have been criticizing the arrest and the search.
Donald Trump did that in the New York Times interview.
He did, and you know what? Lindsey Graham is sort of sheepishly now singing the same tune as the president on that front. And, you know, first of all, when law enforcement conducts an arrest and a search, they do that after a judge has reviewed the evidence as sworn to by the FBI, and the judge decides there's evidence of crime to be found in the place to be searched. That's why they searched Roger Stone's properties, because a judge concluded there would be evidence of crime in those properties. Then we had people complaining that there were too many law enforcement agents involved in the arrest and the search. First of all, there is what's called an ops plan, an operation plan that goes into, you know, strategizing for every significant arrest and search that is conducted. And I'm quite sure Lindsey Graham wasn't at that ops plan, and he didn't know what the police were facing. But it was a multi-jurisdictional effort. It's U.S. Marshals, it's FBI, it's local law enforcement. Those people were there because they needed to be there to protect the safety of everybody.
Glenn Kirshner, Jason Johnson, thank you both for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. To see more videos, click right here, and subscribe.